Inky Johnson,
who tells us that even in the midst of a devastating storm, life goes on.
Perhaps because it's got all the makings of a page-turner.
A call no one wants to get. Your child has been in a terrible accident.
Not knowing whether my son is going to come out of this alive.
He was like a brother to me. He was a brother to me. And the lead doctor says he's about to die.
Now you wake up 2 hours later, but something's happened here.
Every once in a while, a story comes along that captivates the country.
Inky Johnson is one of the most gifted, talented, incredible men.
Together here for the first time with a warning for parents.
So everybody that knew I wanted to go to the NFL, wanted to go to college, everybody I came in contact with told me, Inky, don't go.
And it may make some parents question whether or not their children should play at all.
He said all you have to do is play these football games, you're an automatic multi-millionaire.
You get a scholarship to go play football at University of Tennessee, which is one of the biggest big time.
Inky, you were a poor boy from the streets with dreams of being a millionaire. What happened?
Talk about football on all levels, especially high school. People are like hands off.
You were 10 games away from being a millionaire.
Really, Inky, not the story.
Absolutely.
Like, what were you really thinking?
There's a shock going through my whole body. I can't feel anything. One of the scariest moments of my life.
But now you take this idea that you want to share the story. What happened?
And I'll never forget when I was a freshman in high school, I faced my toughest challenge as a kid. I attended Crim High School on the east side of Atlanta Public School. Some of you all may know about it. The first day I got to the doors, there were cops at the door. They're searching kids like we're going into a prison. They got metal detectors. They're searching kids from the crown of their head to the bottom of their feet. You got to hold out your arms. You got to look up at the ceiling. And I'll never forget, I stepped to the door. I'm getting searched. I got my arms out. I got my head up. He gets to my feet and he's coming back up my body. And he poses the question, what's your plan, little man? I said, man, I'm going D1. I'm going to college. He said, you'll probably end up in cell block D1. He said, didn't you have two uncles that came to the same school? I said, yes, sir. He said, weren't they little athletes just like you? Like people talked about them and how they could play sports and all that? I said, yes, sir. He said, aren't they serving 13 and 40 years at the federal penitentiary, not even 10 minutes away from these front doors? I said, yes, sir. He said, absolutely. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You'll probably end up in cell block D1.
It's a 2-bedroom home. You know, it's 14 of us, one bathroom. And we used to sleep on the floor. We would make pallets.
You see roaches and rats running across you while you're in the home. When he got a chance to sleep in the bed, it was 6 of them in the bed, 3 to the top and 3 at the bottom. And there was time we struggled when, you know, you wonder where your next meal is coming from.
And my mother, she worked at Wendy's and be about the last kid sitting in the park and I'll be waiting on my mother because I didn't want to go home because, you know, every other day or every other week, our front door would get kicked in because my uncles, they sold drugs. And she would pull into the park at night and she would put her car in park and I would hop up off the bench, I would sprint over to her, I would kiss her, I would hug her and I would say, Mom, if you don't mind, can you please sit back in your car and turn on your car lights? I have to do some extra drills, I have to go to the NFL so you'll never have to work another day in your life. And I knew she was tired, but every night she would sit in that car and those car lights would hit that field and he had a 7-year-old kid doing backpedaling drills, running sprints, running laps, chasing his dream, just to be able to go to college.
You know, now I had to find different tactics to do different things. And the whole time while I was fighting these battles, the only face and the only picture that was in my mind was me telling my mother that I was going to graduate college. The smile that she had on her face when I told her that, man, it was great, man. I got my undergraduate, I went on to get my master's. And so for me getting that was a tribute to them.
And when I got my scholarship from Tennessee, you know the first person I went to see? That cop. I slipped my paper across the table to him, and he stood up and he said, I want to ask you a question. How did you do it? He said, every kid that comes in these doors, they say that. But they end up selling drugs across the street at the gas station. Or they end up going to prison, going to jail. Like everybody wants something out of life. He said, the reason I said that to you, he said, I want you to understand something. I'm here every day. He said, you see me in this school every day protecting, stopping fights. He said, the only reason I said it to you, he said, I wasn't even trying to break you. I said it to you to see would you be willing to fight for what you said you wanted.
And I'll never forget my sophomore season, I finally made it to the point in my life where I felt as if everything in my life was lining up. My defensive backs coach, Larry Slade, came in the room. He said, Inky Johnson, I got some good news for you. And I said, Coach, what is it? He said, son, you're a projected top 30 draft pick. He said, all you have to do is play these next 10 football games, you're an automatic multimillionaire. I ran out of the room, I got on the phone, I called my mother and my grandmother, I said, listen, I said, after this season, we will never struggle. I said, we would never miss another meal. I said, after this season, our lives are about to change forever. And little did I know our lives were really about to change. The first game we come out, play against California Bears, I get an interception, we shut them down, we get the victory. Second game, we're playing against Air Force. It gets late in the game, found ourselves in a dogfight. Quarterback dropped back, he released the ball to the running back coming down my sideline. Now I approached the tackle like I approach any other tackle, but at the point of contact, when I hit this guy, something different happened that had never happened to me before in my life.
Inky Johnson is down.
My body went completely limp. I fell to the ground. I blacked out.
My eyes open. My teammates ran over to me and said, Ink, get up. Let's rock. Let's close it out. Let's go. I said, I can't. They said, what do you mean you can't? You always get up. This is your game. You kamikaze. Let's go. You can nurse your injury after the game. I said, I can't. They said, what do you mean you can't? Man, we need you. I said, man, you don't get, there's a shot going from my neck to my toes. I can't feel anything. They get me up in ambulance. They say, Inky, we're going to take you over, run a couple tests, bring you back into the room. Everything will be okay. And they get me over, they run the test, they bring me back into the room. My mother comes in. Doctors came running from the opposite side, and the lead doctor says, guys, get in here. We got to rush this kid back to emergency surgery. He's about to die.
Not knowing whether my son is going to come out of this alive, that just did something I'm sorry. And all I did was pray and I asked God, you know, I can deal with whatever happens, but just don't take my child from me.
They said, Inky Johnson, here's the deal. Just going to cut to the chase. They said, man, we hate to tell you, but your shoulder, your arm, your hand, it'll never be the same again. I said, son, you can never play the game again.
And the next morning when I woke up, can I tell you something? The game of football on my scale of life was that big. The NFL, that big. I was embarrassed. Like people were coming into my room saying, Inky, man, sorry about what happened to you. And I'm like, man, Ink, was that it? Like that's all you really wanted? Was a contract from the NFL?
He wasn't going to be able to play sports again was one thing. But to know that he would not be able to reach out and to hug me, that was another thing. Just the simple things in life. I thought about all that stuff. What was he going to do? How was he going to do it? How would we survive to take care of Inky? But then I realized Inky's a survivor.
And on September 9th, 2006, I will never forget, I'm lying in my hospital bed and my mother comes into the room. She kisses me, she prays for me, and she says, son, you will be fine. And everything my mother had told me up until that point, it was basically law for me. Meaning everything she said, I trusted it, I held on to it because I had been with her ever since she was 16 years old. And when they asked my mother this question, they said, what do you think is gonna happen with Inky? We know he loved the game of football. We know he treated it like it was all he ever had. And she said to him, one bad chapter doesn't define the book. She said, this is only the beginning for my son. He'll be fine. He's resilient. And I walked out of the hospital on the third day. And they came to me and they said, Inky, go home. We know how much the game of football meant to you. I said, yeah, you know how much the game of football meant to me, but you don't know how much life means to me. You see, the thing we have to understand about everything that we're a part of, first and foremost, it's a blessing. And when it's a blessing, you can't help but to give everything you got to it. My life got saved. I got spared my life. But I will use this arm in his hand every day for the rest of my life by the way that I live my life. Every day, I'm going to impact someone's life. Every day, I'm going to empower someone. Every day, I'm going to inspire someone. Every day, I'm going to encourage someone. You can see my arm. My wound is visible. But it's a lot of people in this room that are wounded. And you can't see it. And it's internal. And so the opportunities that we pass up to be a blessing to other people, we can save their life with just one encounter.
But when I speak and somebody say, hey man, that helped me get through this, that got me through this, that got my mother over cancer, that helped my son get through this, that helped me with my marriage, I'm in line with my purpose.
The man that he's grown to become out of all the things that he's been through. He's amazing. He is amazing.